Well, hello, welcome to Drawing with Fire. I'm Valerie, your neighborhood pyrography artist, here to help guide you on your burning adventures. In this video, it's a sped up version of the live that I did today, and we were looking at gradients and should we outline. So we're starting off with the colwood, and I've got the different settings that I was using for the different heat that I'm doing. The left side of the burning is going to be darker and going into the lighter burning, which is on the right. I was having issues with the grain, and it just did not want to work with me. So part of it was burning darker than the rest of it, and I'm trying to blend it out and really work so that it's a little more even. And that did become a little tedious, but that's working with wood. Nothing is going to be the same, even on the same piece of wood. That grain really makes the difference. I think this is the best way for me to explain layers. I'm working in a layer here, and actually 3 or 4 different layers. I'm working from light to dark in order to get that gradient that I'm looking for without having lines. Working in gradients also helps allow me to, starting with the lighter, I can build up my darks and have a little more contrast balance than if I just go in really dark right at the beginning, though I am definitely bad about that too. Sometimes I have my heat adjusted a little too high and jump in when I really need to be focusing on the layers and starting lighter, taking my time and being patient, because in the end it is going to make a difference. This isn't a race. I'm not trying to be the first one done with the piece. It is about, for me, getting as much realism as I can. And I know people say, well, if you want to photograph, just take a picture. There's more to it. And when you're burning a piece and you want that realism, it's not about the photo, it's about what you put into the photo. And that's really important. There's more to, no matter what medium you're working in, on trying to get photorealism, you put a part of yourself into the piece. And as I'm going with this gradient, I'm putting in a bit of frustration because the grain is not wanting to work with me and kind of making me feel like I look bad. But it really is realistic of how burning is and fighting with the grain, and it's okay. It's just a matter of taking your time and going back over it, lowering your heat to get that balance. Now, just working on this gradient, it's sped up, but it took me a good 10 minutes and adjusting and going over things, tilting my tip a little more to the left so that it could have a greater area touching the grain, trying to blend it out and get it smooth. And here in a moment, I'm going to be switching over to Walnut Hollow, and I have even more problem with that. And I'm not used to the Walnut Hollow, and that's okay. It kind of looks like what a new wood burner would do, having not used it before. So now on to the versatool. I used only the shader tip for the whole video. I didn't want to worry about heating up and cooling down and switching tips, so I just stuck with this tip. I started on the darker yellow closer to the orange because prior to that I wasn't getting too much of a burn when I was doing a test burn checking my heat. So I started there. It's not going as smoothly as I would like, and I do try to show each time I move the heat temperature control so that you can see where I'm going. Now I've bumped up the heat, and I'm only going to be going 3/4 of the way on this burn strip in order to start blending out my gradient. The tip, I'm using more of the top edge, the smaller area. I do try using the heel of the burner, and I run into problems because I can't see where I'm burning, and it distributes the heat differently than the other, like the colwood tip. In fact, you're starting to see me having issues. I'm fighting with trying to get it to burn smoothly at the same heat. And unfortunately, again, I'm not as experienced with the Walnut Hollow. I only did, I think, maybe 3 burnings when I started, and quickly switched over to the nibs burner because I was really frustrated with it, and my hand is already hurting. Thankfully, the heat isn't too high, so the pen isn't hot. That isn't an issue right now. But I keep trying different areas of the shader tip to really get that smooth burn, and I'm having a problem with it. But like I said during the live, there are artists who do beautiful work with just the Walnut Hollow. And if this is all you can afford, that is awesome. You can still learn to use your burner and create the work that you want. So we're going to finish up with a gradient. I drew on some leaves, and now we're going to switch over and look at outlining and the differences with that. Now we're going to look at doing outlines. I'm going to start outlining the first leaf with the Walnut Hollow. The rest of the video is only with the Walnut Hollow. And I started with a lower heat setting and raised it because I wasn't getting as dark as I wanted to. I'm not trying to make fun of anybody. I'm just showing what I've seen, including with myself, what new beginners tend to do when they start burning. I think a lot of people use the outline because they're afraid that the graphite is going to go away, and it doesn't. You can burn right up to a line and then erase it without having to outline it. And I show that on the second leaf so you can see the difference and how a little bit more realistic. Granted, for this live, I worked very quickly in the scheme of things and didn't finish all of the detail, but I did want to show how negative burning, gradients, and no outline helps to improve your work. So I did work, this one I believe was in, the heat setting was in red, and I bumped it down a little bit because I didn't want it as dark, because what I see, and again like what I've done in the past, is burn an outline and then not work it in. Now for some styles, outlining does work, and it works wonderfully. If you're doing illustrations, cartooning, just different styles other than realism, outline is a great way to go. But if you're looking for realism and you've been frustrated because it's not looking quite how you imagined, and you do the outlines, that is probably the first thing you should try doing in a different way. Not doing the outlines. It does take a little longer, and I outlined for a good 10 years. No, I'm sorry, not quite that long. I'd say 7 years before I realized, and I was outlining lighter and lighter before I realized, hey, I don't have to do this. So now we're going to switch over to what it looks like without outlining. I don't change my heat temperature until further into the work when I'm wanting to darken some of the shadow lines underneath. And I say lines because it bumps up right next to the lighter areas, so it looks like I'm outlining, but there's a difference. I'm just trying to get the deep darks in shadow areas. Now throughout the whole thing, I did not clean my tip at all. I didn't have to clean my tip because I'm not working so hot and I'm working in layers. That allows me to keep a clean tip the whole time, and I'm not having to wear down using sandpaper. Again, I did that for a long time. It's only been, I think, the last 2 or 3 years that I stopped using sandpaper to clean my tip. I now really don't have to clean it all, and if I polish, I'm using a strop and aluminum oxide to clean. Even for the Walnut Hollow, I'm having no issues. You can also use an X-Acto knife to knock off the carbon. Anyway, back to this. I'm trying to deepen up the shadows in the negative burning. And again, no reference photo. I just drew these leaves out real quick so that I would have something to show you. And I'm deepening up that negative burning right next to the leaf so that it makes it stand out more, and going in and putting in some darker areas. In order to get the darker areas without having to adjust my heat, I'm just slowing down my tip, or how quickly I'm moving the pen. I know you can't tell that from this video because everything is sped up, but your pen control in this and how quickly or slowly you move the pen is what makes that difference. Now I just bumped up the heat so that I could get the darker. I'd already worked as slow as I could to get the darker areas, so it is time to bump it up. But I can still use that temperature to shade the leaf because I'm moving quicker. I'm just moving over. It's really hard to explain, especially when the video is sped up, but the quicker you move, even at the same temperature setting, the lighter the burn. The slower you burn, of course, is making more contact with that area longer, the darker it's going to burn. Now, I mentioned using gradients as well for realism, and if you look at though I didn't do a great job on it, if you look at the shadow, it starts darker next to the leaf and then works its way out lighter, because how light hits an object, the shadow area tends to be the darkest, closest to the opposite side of where the light's hitting for the subject, and then it diffuses out, and that helps if you use a gradient burn instead of a straight same tone or value color of burn for your shadow. It makes it look like it's a real shadow. And what we're going to do now is I ended up going back and forth between the outlined leaf and the non-outlined leaf, or I should say outlined leaf, because I felt that the outline leaf still needed a little bit more work. A new burner is going to put in a little bit more time than I did on that leaf, and I was just trying to get it a little closer in how I had done it in the past when I first started burning, to show that there is a big difference. And I do put a little bit of shadow below the outlined leaf. Right here, I'm just still trying to get those shadows darker, because the contrast is the other part of the equation for a realistic looking piece. You need those darks, you need your highlights, but you also need a bit of variation in your midtones, and that's what I was working on. So I've gone back to the outlined leaf, and I'm just trying to put in a little bit more midtone, give it a little bit more work, because right now it really does look just like a coloring book, and that's not what I'm seeing with wood burners or pyrographers. Kind of sounds weird. Anyway, I just wanted to give it a little bit more time so that if you feel your work looks similar to it, you have a better idea of what I'm talking about, and hopefully the information that I'm showing with the quickly done, no outline, gives you hope, or less frustration, I should say, in trying to achieve the realism you're looking for. Again, I'm not telling you that it's wrong to outline, but if you're frustrated, and I'm seeing that people are frustrated with burning, and I do think this is one of the reasons why. In fact, when I look at their work in a Facebook group, the first thing I notice are outlines. And the more you can either work them in, because if you notice where I put the dark shadow in, under the outlined piece, the dark outline kind of works into the burning, and that works. But where I've got what would be light hitting on the opposite side, that part of the leaf is much lighter and the outline stands out instead of the leaf. So that would be the difference. I want to thank you for stopping by. Hopefully this video has helped you take one more step in your burning adventure. If you're new here, please click the subscribe button and the little notification bell so you never miss a video. Also, please like up this video and leave a comment. I appreciate you spending your time with me. Happy burning, guys. Bye.